Hello, America. There's a savvy finance who has syntax and sense and sensibilities know with serious subjects like organized crime and making convictions by this and theories by this involved with, for example, Connecticut's judicial branch offices and the corrections offices, increasingly planting predicate acts, fake ties, and fake natures of ties to kids. And they'll tell you this. But that's why they won't get on paper and they're forging and switching names into branch. With overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and a whole bunch of nations next to the campuses, sick fakes together, but collusion slash S and shown needs to pretend other by making confessions. Also, no, in ways they don't even realize the extent of, because of how the breaching method used and uses confessions, for example, watching and maintaining other things, others ourselves blames for things that it caused, like why and how we are and have been systems tactical area from what black pupils, whites of eyes are communicating about, but pretending that's science anyway. Having black pupils and whites of eyes and having had a breaching method that reassigned what nature communicates with that when nature is not criminal insidiousness, nature only as itself, as it shows us that too. And when they're replacing what our founders communicated about this, and with cipher that we had deciphered for us, we had it declassified now through our founders' lifetimes, including then as a president too, James Madison, our founders plural, and this including the Native Americans. That we're supposed to refer to them as James Madison singular. His plan, which they don't want slavery. They didn't want slavery. They had to leave it entrenched. They wanted us to understand why and how a breaching method forced them to leave it entrenched. And everyone stayed roles because already internationally monitored conversations, already sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly northern colonies, southern colonies, were entrenched with slavery right through our founders' lifetimes. And then right through our presidents' lifetimes. I mean, right through our founders as James Madison, right through his roles as a president too. Again, I read that we're directed to refer to them plural as him singular, and because they knew they were going to catch them as a record, I caught them here. Replacing what caused the Declaration of Independence, and what caused the Constitutional Convention, and what caused the Civil War, even though it was after him, James Madison. His plan caused it, and the founders that enabled the leverage that one retired English general didn't have means alone to counter the internationally monitored conversations. The internationally monitored roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists at the same time, though. Witch trials, rules with crazy laws against everyone, sickly night too, even against our black pupils, northern colonies, southern colonies, and northern states and southern states. Our founders' communications are being and have been replaced. All pays. A former director of the FBI, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. It is recorded how he had and has an extent of awareness of at least being plausible. That and how I could explain to you all and show you all how he is recorded involved with people. He doesn't even understand the extent of it. But next to on off the Connecticut judicial branch offices with criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, readings of statutes and precedents roles, with judges and prosecutors, and with conjunctions to the state judicial branch offices as names next to a temporary, long term, and just passing by on the route, like Route 3 that goes by the state judicial branch offices. The same thing with the state corrections offices. These are people increasingly inclusions with identity thefts and frauds and slanders and wire crime acts and methods where they put fake and changed phones with the police even. And the police that attached me to fake being at the police station and speaking with them as a kid and then as an adult. And the kids who did go down there to speak with the police, they forced them, they gave affidavits. And they know other was recording and they told other, and everyone knows that, but they changed things by pretending other things with other cases. They're using and have the rules with using and having been used. All natures of investigations, investigators. In other words, and they have all different natures of people of all these different interests run in at the same time. And all pretend, say things to make it look like they had a conversation with people tied to different aspects in nature. They need to pretend with the people involved with them, with wire crime acts and methods, all kinds of legal scams, mail crimes, wire crimes, forging other doctors' names, fake transcripts of their own names too, while tactically delusions wrought. The people of mental health too, interstates, but not just because it's in America alone. They have a whole bunch of countries shared here and there, and they're not supposed to confess it, but they do when they communicate through each other. When they're confessing about how they put falsified police reports as in arrays, and they confess and demonstrate confirmed collusions as they predicate acts of facts methods that branches of the government individually grouped them together. And the counters to all natures of things, they have them as collusions. They have New Britain Superior Court even has victims advocates increasingly involved with the intelligence community, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, elderly homes too. They have all little sick games with the elderly homes, and they make it come through their own people, like the elderly against the elderly, and the difference of that, or the elderly and of the workers. In every nature of job is a certain type of torture against that person, and that difference, and a certain type of extortion involved with it, and a certain nature factory nature slavery, and a certain nature roles with the difference of that used remotely, or the names next to it, and with the differences of guilt, or the people just passing through. In other words, and the other differences used to screen other names, like the other countries involved. And the industries involved still criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, incapable of affording to be discerned. How histories were supposed to be understood. We're supposed to understand you don't bring up economics at countries A through Z, leaving out the hyperforeign that was there. The only reason that was capable of being because that hyperforeign forced persuaded anyone, made and maintained everyone, self-cultivated roles, propagated incapable of discerning the hyperforeign, that which is not countries A through Z, but it took part with our country's founding. It was still entrenched. Northern colonies, southern colonies. It was hiding and is hiding behind the difference of that too. The same thing that's playing our different color eyes and our same color eyes, which are black and white. No, how could it's inseparable from what slavery is about? Just like with George Washington. I mean, just like how our founders, not as George Washington, as James Madison. George Washington is a president/chief. Three natures of volume that are incapable of being. I mean, they're only increasing volume each part of it, just like a cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall. Shares also that the other cell walls connected in the body of life coming through it. Its appreciation of gases in its elements, water in their elements, positive or negative too. No, because it's showing us everything is onto its body. Every body, every complete identity is a semi-nature relationship to its body. Differentially, its body is one identity of volume juxtaposed with matter as the same volume that is also not won't juxtapose with matter. And there are proofs because the ancients revealed as most probable and it's demonstrable because demonstrably most practical to theorize, let alone to convey. I lost my train of thought, but no one's ever watching. It's too long. In other words, you know what I'm saying, people? In other words, gangs and organized crime are involved with World Trade Center predicate acts and with names next to WFSB through time. But these are also people who pretend it's just legitimate roles with unmarked police forms. And they have actual wire crime acts and falsified police reports and faked audio and video at police stations, fake ties to little kids, fake natures of ties to little kids, fake motivations for it planting, to screen the roles with the breaching method with their motivations for one thing. But that has a whole bunch of different people and strangers, and the difference of that, and the people that know each other, the difference of that is also used. This deep breaching method plays difference. My father, I don't know if he read this or he made this up. Emotion, stability, identity, difference, and being. And I brought this up to some people involved with the intelligence family and foreign countries, involved with my grammar school and other grammar schools in other cities, intercities, involved with intercultural and intracultural and interdifferences with interbranch families and intelligence tied to them. At the same time, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, and countries A through Z, and insidiousness in natures A through Z. Like for example, that's relative to where and how we have black people's whites of eyes. And we know the array of excuses that we have and have had forgiveness for, because we know the connected array of impositions upon people A through Z. If they try to attend, if they try to reveal, to force that quality of that aspect in that nature of the Constitution unabridged with free speech, and why and how we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them, let alone while they're still can't afford to have discerned properly what witch trials are about, even if they're made up. What's the proper description of them? Because that instantly brings out what is inseparable from that. Again, for example, regarding those things, most principle, like where and how northern colonies, southern colonies at the same time, black people's whites of eyes communications were reassigned and disabled. We are forced, tricked, turned, and persuaded to be systems tactical ulterior from natures where it is also positive unto itself, from natures where it uses the human species system and the other species bodies of individual bodies with all of their own group differences, as simultaneously demonstrated to us, generated by the same thing. That which is not us nor them, but it is all things anyway. Hear many pray, partially because every campus, and the differences between them, the best and the worst, all natures of difference, are used to measure and maintain self-valued roles. With those conformities, syntactically and or nature-wise, when we pay attention, the three branches of government and the intelligence tied to them recorded themselves as psychopaths, but they were backed into it. It's like they're fighting, in other words, I want to make it a boxing analogy, or, in other words, a metaphor. We have to be led by that, which is better than just true always. That which doesn't leave that system, which we could afford to not leave out the smallest finite detail, let alone finite details, grouped ones, and simultaneous ones, leaving out, forcing them left out, and changing them, faking them increasingly, having to value that having been, while they are used remotely at A through Z, shown there needs to hide this to come, shown needs to have passions and emotions with economic positions and value defenses and syntactical appreciations. But where and how at the same time better than free. Nature itself was is showing us to bring injunctive reliefs. I'm not even a lawyer. To the people of all locations /s, let alone those people most hurt by the tactically denatured A through Z. We have been systems tactical terror from what nature shows us. It likes, as positive, also positive unto itself, to have a relationship with the water and the land. And what all the species love clear water. We have forever chemicals, not by accident, in all the clean water spots. We have the whole ocean polluted by our one little species body of individual bodies. All group differences now through an system's tactical theory from its own. That causing even worse things, and that's too still forced blame down other things, others ourselves. Until that is true more and more. All those original truths also used for lies. Black pupils. Still fake size or fake unity. People, that's why they have people so fighting to agree about unity by calling things racism. Because there are differences, racketeering roles with names of the people of sciences being and haven't been used remotely, time collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. There are a whole bunch of people tied to former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. There's a girl who asked me if my father was in the mafia when I was in high school. She's involved with a Joshua Stryker, who's been lying about himself and me and others involved with other overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and child abusers, leaders of kids, First Forest, years apart, and more involved with abuses of their own kids and of other kids, people with that. And the difference of that and their neighbors' kids. And I don't know, the thing is just pausing now. My video's pausing. And now it's back to the quirk in the system. Vaccines. But makes us shush to hear. I'll try. But it makes no sound. But long as we try. Wants us to contemplate if we're making criminal and serious natures of positive out of negative, or hyper positives out of negatives. The identity of all space / existence will only stay further positive unto itself, inseparable to hyper additionally with its hyper additional value by a special difference. We could deny that for it, but only as ourselves, then only as positive value nature, as criminal insidious natures of it, as of Earth's a special difference, as our own forced from here, as a negative identity of relationship to itself, the identity of all space / existence, as every identity, relative to positive and negative simultaneously, but also as a quality of diffusion. and not just those alive. This is how English was revealed to be taught. Boxing is fought, but by the rules. But the rules have been abridged since some ancient times. So this has been departed from where and how we can make. We reveal where it's positive onto everyone, everywhere at once. If we fight the right way as fact human nature. But the experts, the suits and ties, counters, exceptions, they force us to call each other names first, because no one plays real while they're pretending other as psychopaths, natures of calmness or aggression. That's why I can't handle someone trying with aggression or calmness, with the protraction of short words, or even with the short words, with convictions proper. By how we have black pupils, whites of eyes. All the things and revelations that come with this simultaneously / hyper simultaneously. Black pupils. All parts of grammar, parts of speech are about the invisible but still discernible. More probably for how the ancients taught this language before the sciences became criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence. And more no longer capable of affording to be discerned. Discernment by the identity the sciences share. The identity has boxing, martial arts, and wrestling. About fighting again, but by the rules. Again, but the rules have been tactically abridged in some ancient times. We must prepare our minds, but must free our hearts. Also to discern the games played in here when we do this. The games upon perception and with motivations. They're playing punk games with the entertainment, the nature of the theater, and fake motivations, changing and faking what people say about World Trade Center predicate acts. CBS, the same ones involved with multiple distinct overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And with the difference of the guilt there or next to them, and next to relative campuses and locations. They have predicate acts and predicate acts roles with. And enforcing that with people as collusions on off the state judicial branch offices of Connecticut. And all natures of conjunctions to it and to that. Like the state judicial branch offices and like the Route 3, which goes by the state judicial branch offices. But the way it's manifest that way is relative to right, where, and how. The same names involved with that. I only know a whole bunch of people. I only know. But in other words, their connections to the World Trade Center. One of the things that connects them is I only know them as they are actually recorded. So why don't you say that? Because that's recorded. I recorded them also replacing what's actually recorded by putting fake recorded things with the same ones involved. And with their educators. They already had people whole careers involved with all kinds of changing and faking all kinds of things, but simultaneously collusion / S. All kinds of little magic tricks where they record people after they communicated the same thing and make it look like that people communicate on the phone. I never have communications over the phone with a Joe DeMauro. He tried to make a fake exception, wanted me to go pick up a fishing pole. He got one just like mine, an ugly stick, from near across the street from my house. I go to get his to give him his thing. He's involved with the too. With some Mendez police, involved with some sexual and medical offenders, also with the FBI. And with a upskirt nature principal and some other child abusers years ago. And he says people involved with the name O'Connor. with Eric Klotz and a Marco Mancini and his neighbors. And that's why, in other words, they went and bought the supplies to make a bomb. And then and it was not made at my house. And then they went over, in other words, and told Marco Mancini. And in other words, I barely know Marco Mancini, but they were setting me up there. So they're framing me also with his neighbors years later, too. I don't know what it does. Hartford Hospital, people next to the state, next to where the Wethersfield police are now, where they used to be. These are also people changing and faking phone records. People that work with phone companies, too, are involved with Knott Street. It's on. I thought Paul Kelly lived at the end of Wells Road, but that too. But in other words, Paul Kelly is involved with Knott Street and other corners on it too, with people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, and then people that were influenced to be next to me so others could take pictures apparently and repeat fake things. Increasingly, these are people involved at and next to the campuses I went intercities who had connections made for themselves. One of the connections is their roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, instances, fake motivations for it, sequence shifts. And these are also timed collusion/S with the sequence shifts from proven inside the Ninth Circuit Court, right next to the World Trade Center towers in Manhattan, New York, the court next to it. And the same ones at the World Trade Center and spots next to it. And people tie in different natures of conjunctions to them into that. Three ways manifest too, because of how they have the names of spots A through Z, the differences already being and haven't been used remotely, including at countries A through Z. Forgiveness is because your eyes are being and haven't been used remotely when you speak about economics, leaving out which is greater than a more fine identity. How nature uses group differences, tactabilitarian. So you guys have like the order of operations wrong where it counts, not limited to making math bigger than it is and smaller than it is. Tactabilitarian from how nature communicates about great and finite, so therefore big and small, because it communicates about how it is distinctly. It is an increasing value how it is distinctly the identity of the simultaneous from how it is the identity of the hyper-simultaneous and from how it is the slash as a distinct third, distinct, hyper-invisible but still discernible part of itself. For example, the present participle and the past participle about present / forever nature, and present and past forever nature, and the future is about being two different, distinct, hyper invisible but still discernible parts of its complete identity. The identity of forever nature, that the distinct as that distinct identity of simultaneous nature. That is not our species body, is not those species bodies. Again, but is all things anyway, in its way. That way, showing us it is one and simultaneous group as the human species body, as other species bodies of individual bodies. The difference between the numbers themselves is where and how it is communicating to us about difference. The difference between the sounds, while the reality stays the same. 1 + 1 is 1. It's 2. God, I saw a Terrence Howard clip, I think, on Joe Rogan. They're playing with us, the theater. They want to change the fake motivations and screen them all. but they don't realize, but to an extent, /S. And the breaching method is showing and has shown the names of the people of the sciences. And A through Z, when they try to tell, even if countries A through Z, even if there are groupings of the most powerful countries, everyone agrees. And then the whole species agrees with us. As long as we're self-valued roles, ignoring and forcing ignored, like these revelations, these hyper-evidential rather, and revelations and communications, and means to discern criminally foreign influence, tactical illusions, uses of words like research, words like theory, words like convictions, words like, in other words, all words. And again, as nature, it's not just criminal and seditious nature, it's hyper criminal and seditious nature. A human fact should be nature breaching method. Nature showing us it's more probable to theorize and even to convict that a hyperforeign name that is not A through Z of the humans as the phenomenon of the names of the countries. Again, that could only be operated by locations, areas, and states names. Just like the species body could only be operated by individuals, for example, grouped and simultaneous to the extent we can. We're in how we have a difference. As a human species, we're different from those species bodies. Again, that is showing us, even with all exception nature, it is a distinct identity of exception nature. And it's where and how all things are it. So we are all exception nature too. But the way it is. But we are forbid short words proper. Like with these hyper-evidential means we have to peer right through the ages of the syntax of the law, black pupils. Peer we must. Demand all see the whites of eyes. We know this phrase. We know the sentence. Don't shoot until you see the whites of eyes. But we have not coupled with it the cipher that we were given to cipher for too. Ugh. But this breaching method measured and maintained self-valued roles with the uses of the words of our founders, James Madison, therefore, singular. Again, note this, what I'm saying about this. Before they went and got George Washington to agree to use their plan. No, and that's the first president. So note how James Madison was a founder and the founder, but representing groups too, the other founders, but we're directed to refer to them as him. But we're also directed to refer to pay attention to chief / president, the difference / differences there. But this is because even religious messengers couldn't go into detail proper. For example, regarding why and how it says at the beginning of the Old Testament, only defend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together in the part that comes before it. In other words, it knew that if it explained that properly, they would just change it. The difference, there could be collusions too, with the difference of either the people attacking the religion and the people preserving it. The difference of that too, would they be self-valued roles with uses of that and their own differences when motivations, narratives for how it has and has had marionette uses of A through Z, doing everything it needs for itself. In other words, In other words, the way that when they say, "Oh, the markets have to be scared," their roles with torture, extortion, fact, human nature, slavery. We have to be that scared of markets. In other words, we don't have to be that scared of markets. We can just go like that and make things better than free. We have to just agree as a species body and trying to a plan that's going to make hyper positive out of negative. It's going to search it to make sure it's not criminal insidiousness nature, for finite details, for group details, and for simultaneous ones, especially one now at the same time. Prepare its mind. The species body move. Vaccines. Imagine how quick we could organize movies, and we could use YouTube for it. We can get our actors practicing. In other words, you know how many different types of white the black actors have to practice. In other words, inside the movie, we make it a comedy though. We could do all one in the same kind of real time, so we can discern it. And the white people have to do all different kinds of black. Because we're not going to leave out the breaching methods roles with this game though. And the counter game. We definitely won't leave it out with the counter game designed to lock us, force us to discern the whites of eyes and why and how not to shoot nor need once we get the species body set and all proceed. Don't disbelieve. More energy can be saved and created, and great nature and things come from it by dropping water than it takes to lift it. I mean, in other words, all exceptions, exception nature, come with demonstrations of the same thing. See, all natures of industry, all natures of jobs, wealth, with our economy treatments, not only can't afford definition of that, in fact, treatments of that, and afford to be discerned with our founders communicated about it properly. Then they have to self-value simultaneously as is done. The names of the people of sciences, being and having been, stayed collusion /s with from off all locations /s, including, and then further at databases, identities of relativity /relativity to ourselves, and then further at ones with campuses. And as that relative to all exceptions too, like homeschool. Those very kids and the adults in their families, they are kept needing to run in and hide life aggressions against strangers and needing to pretend other and the opposite, etc. And differentially where and how, on a mass scale, all natures of investigators at countries A through Z. There were shown needs to hide life aggressions, to hide collusion /s, which is one of the things that is discernible where and how. All have collusions replacing what nature communicates and what our founders communicated about black pupils, whites of eyes, therefore about black and white, and about the breaching method that reassigned that, when with all exception nature showing that some things are only natural as criminal insidious nature, but criminal insidious nature will only allow that to be. The value of the subject treatments, the premises treatments, the finite grouped and simultaneous treatments with things as serious as slavery, let alone slavery, wars, and revolution at the same time. Prepare each mind. This shows a bunch of fakes. They need to pretend other by having debates and pretending passions and emotions about their side because they died in the past, or they're dying now, or they're at threat of dying now. The reason that they're at threat of dying now at countries A through Z It's because we have been systems tactilitarily from its own. That's the solution. When we're on suburbs that were designed before cars, designed we know for torture, extortion, and slavery. The only northern colonies and southern. The only reason people get away with pretending other, no, requires their uses of their nature as psychopaths, pretending other. Well, let's have experts decide. Those experts involve all kinds of natures of organized crime, clearer than day, criminally fornicables, tactical delusions, raw, readings of principles, of the mind, of American history. They have roles with you guys. Well, I'm not a doctor, though. The only experts allowed to be speaking. If you guys can't discern the doctors, if they have all kinds of recorded wire and mail crime acts and methods, digital crime acts and methods, collusions with names at forensics locations, demonstrably at the campuses that raised them since they were little kids. Criminally fornicables, tactical delusions, rob black pupils. Clear the chalkboard, clear. Let's all prepare. So in other words, clearer than day, they have tactically criminally fornicables, tactical delusions, raw readings of religious books too, to state collusions where they keep other things, others themselves. Blame for where and how. People have differences. There are other names increasingly involved with that. Increasingly, there are other motivations, including the breaching method. The breaching method is the motivation behind you. Who would pretend not to realize the hyper evidential of having black pupils, whites of eyes, and having our founders' communications of it changed in self-valued roles, with people simultaneously pretending not to realize, too. That's recorded. What motivates that? Oh, this is the motivation because of money and things like that. Even those true motivations, it was just deeper than that. The breaching method, too, again, that's one thing is true always. That's involved with your motivations A through Z. Why you have self-valued roles, blaming other things other than themselves for what nature is demonstrating to us about the ocean, why and how the ocean is polluted. And you did that so long until the all truths. No, look, they did this and the other side's going like that. The breaching method caused all this. The suburbs were designed before our founders were born. They didn't have cars yet. Everyone was being tortured, extorted, and fact nature enslaved. They're designed to be landscape theater that needs to have more and more. That means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and means to counter those negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that nature is demonstrating. And with those demonstrations, demonstrating the breaching method, but simultaneously rolls more and more with only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, as if the self-value rolls with criminal and ceaseless natures of positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, increasingly incapable of having and appreciating. In other words. Words proper, by positive and negative, by power, might, by humanity, the species body system long. Boxing is strong, but give it rest. Boxing, I tell best so many ways. Boxing, martial art, and wrestling again. We must fight. But as the human species body of individual bodies, about who's going to make it feel positive everywhere at once. Not that fake positive, not that criminal and ceaseless nature of positive. Who's going to make the water clear all of a sudden more and more, better than free? And no means for everyone. Now, see, this instantly changes the nature of things, and all these natures of wealth and things are reliant upon torture, extortion, fact, human nature, slavery, being and having been. You know, Self-value roles with nature debate inside the nature debate contains quality aspects of nature. Again, don't forget, I don't know if I didn't say it in this video, but I learned in notes at Central Connecticut State University that had internationally monitored conversations where if no one could even speak about building an international monitored, about building infrastructure outside of internationally monitored conversations. Again, those rules were already with slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies, and other than per means our founders communicated about, other than we're even allowed to pretend. They're forcing all knowledge of good news. Do you know who so and so was? Oh, you know who that's who is? In other words, some person is not even. In other words, you can't understand American history if you don't understand what had been sustained against Native Americans. There are proofs, and then Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Already since before that, but since before modern religious messengers were born, the phenomenon of the names of countries above locations, areas, and states. They had already been forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to defend themselves, wrongly as fact, human nature, and therefore more and more as physically, and more had counters with to that. More and more also other ways, blaming other things or others ourselves, the same things that the breaching method was causing, is causing, and maintaining against everyone to keep this. And knowing that simultaneously roles defending that are styles and natures of logic forced by nature itself that keeps people and natures and styles of logic, premises treatments that are criminally formidable and tactical delusions wrought and relied on people on a mass scale. So when people try to use short words proper with conviction, but less, less they protract, will show everybody. The experts on color, they have failed because they are hyper unnatural impositions. Forgiveness is for we don't show these failures, we don't discuss these failures, leaving out the breaching methods need for that, and only allowing that to be the outcome /S. But this requires roles with people who want to debate things, and dishonestly, criminally foreign influence out of sequence, lying about their motivations, collusions with other names not even there. You guys are preventing World Trade Center predicate acts that WFSB has roles with. They have people involved with different criminal enterprises with their language to me, where I only know them planting evidences. And the others I don't know at all. Like a Joshua Schumack. He was trying to make it look like I partied with him. That's with his language too. In other words, I never partied with I didn't even party with my neighbors. They tried to make it look like I partied with my neighbors. I never partied with my neighbors, like Ray Claw. I never partied with him. When I went to the prom, that got messed up because that was people involved with the former director of the FBI, Robert Lusk. I didn't know his name then. I never saw him then. I only saw him once in a 2006 district court case in New Haven. Increasingly, I noticed the people on both sides of criminal and civil cases, including interstates, involved with predicate acts for facts against me, and with WFSB News, and as people involved with collusions with a bunch of people in the sources of WTNH. There are parents of kids who I don't even know. They don't even know me. They went out of their way to time collusions with a Mendez police family, a DeMoro family, a Scalora family, with wire crime acts and methods with them, with some people named O'Neill with Whiting Forensics, also with a Phil Colo and a Bob Chase, with others with sexual and medical offenders of kids and forensics names, and people brought up with them too. Some former mayors from a former Gold family. And I don't know that guy's name, but he's also with Whiting Forensics. And this Bob Chase. And other people, I don't know their names. I can't get it onto paper. They have various judges and prosecutors and their family members and people with the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices involved with medicines and drugs crimes and falsified police reports, identity thefts and frauds, wire crime, mail crimes with the same house/S involved with years apart, child abusers, roles that were still first forced. The same ones involved with them with all kinds of medical rackets and that have nothing to do with medicine, but they're pretending they're charging people. All kinds of behavior racketeering, worse than war crimes, too. Fake motivations for it. There are proofs that there might have been murder involved, even if it was a made-up story about how they had a Hartford, not a year or two, a couple of years ago, a Hartford firefighter who died because the oxygen wasn't mixed right. See, for example, these are people behind. There are people that try to pretend they're testing people's, and when they speak about courage, you guys are the biggest cowards where and how it counts with fact human nature, with the black pupils, whites of eyes. In other words, we shouldn't have to beg to get Judge Napolitano is one of the names involved with Fox Connecticut News with Facebook and Fox Connecticut News personally too with their Facebook pages, involved with New Britain Superior Court's Facebook page, Wethersfield Police Facebook page, Whiting Forensics, involved with all kinds of digital crimes with a principal upskirt nature, but they are worse predicate acts with that, and wire crime and mail crime roles, putting predicate acts with facts and databases roles, with names off the state corrections offices too, and off the state judicial branch offices, and with the people with the prisons needing to hide libel aggressions and being and having been used remotely that way, shown needs to, at crime scenes of all natures and next to them, including relative body dumping spots, and a serial killer, personally and professionally involved, also, personally involved too with his doctors and people with his prison, with other methods and natures of organized crimes that have him involved with too, and people with the name Cintron from Puerto Rico tied to a police chief Cintron, and another one from Wethersfield years ago at least, involved with an 80 Carrollsville Drive, where everyone had a reported girlfriend tied there. And these are people also with next to, at 3 spots at the end of the Burlington Turnpike, a bunch of people have been influenced to put fake ties, fake natures of ties to me with the foreign and domestic. Like apparently they put like a Joshua Schumack is one of the ones involved with people with the intelligence community with sequence ships and with digital crimes with the Wethersfield police, with child sex offenders and medical themes, some KKK black themed, interreligious spots themed, and their roles with all along the Route 3 and conjunctions to it and conjunctions to that, like the state judicial branch offices, is one of the things that ties a whole bunch of people involved with wire crimes and falsified police reports and the interbranch forging and switching names. At the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. That's why we need to do this on paper and get them on paper. Fear God. In other words, so I don't even know. I have to give the girl's name, but there's a Joshua Stryker and other people with the name Kerr and DeMorrow and Kalal, that students and adults at Trinity College, also with a police chief or a police guy who said his name was Darth Vader, is involved with some untimely deaths. With my past neighbors, they forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to roles with other natures of predicate acts there. And to repeat fake things, make up fake things, fake ties, fake natures ties. They don't even know. They're torturing them too with their roles with the rest of them. And what led up to that and their narratives by it, even if they made the whole thing up. In other words, Has something to do with the roles with the child campuses, the elderly homes, and the veteran homes, and names next to that, and the difference of that at the same time too. The roles all along town lines and such, because it's manifest that way because all locations, areas, and states never stop being used criminally foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence in the breaching method uses and maintains that countries' names A through Z. They go pay for schools, and they go pay for people to use names isms. They have a shell game. Russia plays communism. America plays capitalism, and they all fake what they believe is legitimate interpretations of what pantheism was about, which is more probably having been about seeing through its own ism to be and stay led, being led by that distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible. As all the parts of English grammar about the invisible but still discernible. Why and how we have to appreciate more than one identity of verb. Why more than one word for a verb? It shows us the hyper invisible, the body of the hyper invisible, to an extent. And the extent of it comes with its complete identity relationship to itself, with only increasing value with that at the same time. That's what we are appreciating when we appreciate what a predicate is. A predicate is a hyper additional name for a verb, because every identity is about hyper additional nature. And this is what the invisible but still discernible parts of speech as a verb is about. And as the other names of it is about. But simultaneously, where and how it is also about that, why and how there are more names there grouped as verb, but not as a verb, but a group, in other words, but as anyway, like the participle nature, the present participle, the past participle. These are also names for a verb, but now it's inflected no longer as used as a main verb. Could be used as a gerund or as a present participle by putting an ing on a verb. Now you could use it as a noun or as as a subject. But as about which is about the invisible but still discernible. But it can't be used as a okay. I forget. Thank you, people. It's also the hyper invisible but still discernible that has us know the extent of the past that's gone, but know it now. Extent of what is active grouped, we own, and knowing there's an extent of the past we know we don't know about, and there's an extent of what is active group we know we don't know about. In the future. But when I say know about it, I don't mean through systems like economies where you leave out the rest of what our founders communicated and replacing what they communicated about that. I mean, like being able to discern the value of seasons that are not even here yet before they get here, and how, even if they never get here, they are discernibly only increasingly valued. Not just to ourselves, not just to the rest of Earth's difference, so to the other species' bodies, but to that which is all things at once, but not by any way, and only gaining positive onto itself further. Reach identity is automatically already relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. And that gains evolution's fruits and gifts and means out of nowhere, here at and as Earth in our own special difference. Or it is forced from here if we ignore the system. This method of revealing evolution's fruits, gifts, and means out of nowhere. This is what steps to the table. in boxing and circle gains, or else we sense. Boxing and gains all shape. I thank you, people.